Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about Superman. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love hearing from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place in Metropolis, where Lois Lane is watching WGBS News. They are covering the story about how recently Dr. Doom went to hell itself to retrieve his mother's soul. But when the gates of hell opened, all of the dead villains returned to Earth. In the attack that followed, many heroes died, and their souls went to heaven, where they recruited the souls of all the dead heroes from over the years to help them. And they all returned to Earth too. In the end, the good guys won, and the villains were locked up. Check out our 40th anniversary episode for more details on all of that. Point being, Earth K is still coming to terms with the fact that all of those heroes have returned. The Metropolis Evening News is talking about how the original Golden Age Batman, who is, of course, secretly Bruce Wayne, has returned to Gotham City for the first time since he died in the 1970s at the hands of Bill Jensen. Lois is on the phone when Superman shows up, and her heart skips a beat when she sees him after all this time. Lois tells him, though, that he died, and right now she's actually dating a man named Jeb Friedman. Lois feels awful because, of course, she never thought in a million years that her husband would come back from the dead, especially after a couple of decades have passed. Superman tells Lois that he understands and that he is indeed in a bizarre situation. He offers her one of those classic Christopher Reeve smiles, and he tells her that they agreed to be married until death do us part. And he did die. Lois is still upset, though, but he says it's not the end of the world, and whatever the future holds, they'll figure it out together. Superman then takes his leave for the evening, and Lois immediately makes a phone call to Jeb Friedman saying, "We need to talk." As she does that, Clark flies to the Justice League's watchtower and finds several of his old teammates sitting in the cafeteria. They get to talking about Lois and Clark's situation, and Superman learns that, as one might expect, there's actually a lot of that going around. While the heroes were dead, the world moved on without them, for better or worse. Which brings us to the main plot of today's tale. Clark Kent goes to the Daily Planet building where he speaks with Ron Troop, who is now the editor in chief. Clark's oldest son was Clark Kent Jr., who looked exactly like his dad, even though he was the half human son of Lois Lane. And Clark the Third looks exactly like his grandfather as well. So, because of this, the original Clark Kent from the Golden Age and Silver Age walking around in the Daily Planet building doesn't really raise any suspicions. Clark speaks with Ron and is hired on the spot. They shake hands, and Ron is showing Clark around. As Clark sees everything that's changed in the Daily Planet over the years, word comes in that a kaiju has been spotted entering Metropolis from the Atlantic Ocean. Ron tells Clark he'd better cover the story, and then he gives him a wink. It's a sort of reverse nod to the old Silver Age stories that ended with Superman winking to the reader. But it's also a sign that Ron Troop knows exactly who Superman really is. So Clark gives Ron a nod and then finds the same old janitor's closet that has a window in it, which begs the question of how long have Daily Planet editors known that Clark Kent was Superman? But I digress. Clark changes into his costume and flies out the window, heading for the waterfront where he spots Metallo. After Metallo went to hell, he made a deal with a demon named Neron. So Metallo's powers have been upgraded from what they were originally. And now he can assimilate machinery. So Metallo assimilated an entire aircraft carrier. And now he's like a gigantic transformer version of himself. And he's about to step on an all you can eat crab shack that is owned by Bibbo Bibowski until Superman hits Metallo with a pre crisis level punch, which knocks the Titanic robot back into the ocean. Bibbo, who's Superman's biggest fan, yells up to Superman, thanking him and trying to offer him a free meal. Superman just gives him a friendly salute and says, I'm afraid I can't just now. Then the Man of Steel streaks out across the ocean. On Metallo's turn, he launches missiles. A volley of them hit Superman, doing no damage, but his costume is burned. On Superman's turn, he punches Metallo again, declaring knockout damage only. Metallo's glowing green eyes go dark and his body falls limp. Superman then picks him up and flies Metallo to the North Pole to the Fortress of Solitude, setting his gigantic roboti down in the snowfield out front. Superman then flies inside the fortress, grabs the Phantom Zone projector, and then flies back out with it. But just as he's getting ready to put Metallo into the Phantom Zone, Metallo reveals that he was playing possum. In the DC Heroes role playing game, we built Metallo's head as a separate gadget from Metallo's aircraft carrier body. So even though the body took damage, the head was fine. And the head has the interface power. So Metallo hacks the Phantom Zone projector. And as a surprise attack, he puts Superman in the Phantom Zone. As soon as Superman finds himself in the zone, he is greeted by Ultraman, Superman's counterpart from the antimatter universe of Quard, as well as a Bizarro. The fortress has a gadget that allows communication between the Phantom Zone and our regular game world of Earth K. So, using it like a view screen, Bizarro asks Metallo how he managed to put Superman into the Phantom Zone. But Metallo admits it wasn't his idea. So Bizarro asks, whose idea was it? Metallo tells him it was his father's. Bizarro seems surprised by this, and he says, Lex Luthor? Metallo tells a brief story about how the old diseased body of Lex Luthor may be dead, but Luthor's mind was placed in a machine, a gadget that has the personality transfer power. And then then the mind, rather, of Lex was placed into a newer, more powerful body. The Phantom Zone villains ask Metallo to let them out. But then Lex Luthor shows up in his pre crisis green and purple power armor and says, that's not the plan. Lex uses various gadgets that Superman keeps in the trophy room of the Fortress of Solitude, from anti gravity technology that Superman confiscated from old mad scientists of decades past to the most destructive weapons ever made, taken from various alien invasions over the years. With all of this, Lex Luthor actually makes the Fortress of Solitude rise up out of the ground. The snow falls off of it, revealing its almost pyramid like shape. The Golden Fortress flies to Metropolis, and Lex Luthor speaks over a comm system to everyone listening. And Lex says that either North America is going to belong to him or it's soon going to be much, much smaller. So Supergirl and Krypto are the first to react. Lex Luthor fights them, but his mind is now in a body created by the Hypercube, a cosmic artifact Superman kept in the Fortress of Solitude. So this newest incarnation of Lex Luthor is cosmic. He shoots Supergirl and Krypto with energy blasts until they're knocked out. Next to respond is Wonder Woman. She too fights Lex Luthor, and when he fires energy blasts at her, she deflects them with her bracelets. Supergirl and Krypto wake up but are low on hit points. WGBS is here, and Cat Grant interviews Supergirl, asking her what's going on. Supergirl knows that this recording will still be around 1,000 years from now. So she looks directly into the camera and speaks not to the normal viewers, but to the Legion of Superheroes. She explains the situation and says she needs help. She gives them the current date and time, hoping that Brainiac 5 will appear in a time bubble as soon as she's done talking. But he doesn't. The one who does show up, however, is Batman. He's in the newest Batwing, which has more room inside than previous Batwings did. The bomb bay doors open, and Dick Grayson gestures for Supergirl and Krypto to fly up to where he is, so they do. Dick was actually Batman for a while after Bruce died, but since Bruce is wearing the bat suit again, Dick is wearing the traditional black and blue Nightwing costume now. Supergirl and Krypto come aboard, and Dick pets Krypto, saying it's good to see him again. Krypto licks Nightwing, and Batman asks Supergirl to tell him everything that's happened. So she does. As she does, other members of the Superman family show up to attack Lex. But Superman kept a sample of every color of kryptonite in the fortress. So Lex starts to use them on the Superman family. Once they are defeated, Lex is then attacked by the Legion of Superheroes, most of them at least. While Quizlet keeps Lex busy, Kid Quantum gets Superman out of the Phantom Zone, something the Legion has some experience with. Speaking of which, Mon-El and Andromeda trade punches with Lex Luthor. Lex knocks them out, but before he can finish them off, Superman punches Lex hard enough that Luthor hits a wall and the entire fortress rings like a bell. Everyone on the streets of Metropolis hears that and wonders what is going on in the skies overhead. On Luthor's turn, he uses the power of the Hypercube to wrap Superman up in Cthulhu like tentacles and try to crush him. The idea here is for the tentacles to be magical and take advantage of Superman's weakness to magic, thus crushing him once and for all. But because the tentacles are created by a cosmic artifact, they aren't actually real magic. And as such, Superman still resists with a body of 40 rather than a body of 4. So for the moment, he's fine. Just then, a Batarang flies into the scene, striking the Hypercube. The Batarang's Omnipower can be used for multiple things at once. So it has 0 APs of clinging, so that allows it to stick to the cube. Then, with the other remaining 10 APs, it tries to shut the cube off, which would not only delete those tentacles, but it would actually delete Luthor's new body too. Luthor doesn't like where this is going, so he decides to fly to where the miracle machine is. The heroes figure this out and they follow him there to stop him. But when they get there, they find Jimmy Olsen. Jim was there in 1938 when Clark first debuted as Superman. He was Superman's pal for ages. And while non heroes did not come back from the dead recently, Jimmy was actually a superhero. In fact, he wasn't just one hero, he went by a ton of different names over the years, from Elastic Lad to Turtle Boy. So Jimmy also came back from the dead. And like so many others, he found out that when he died, his widow, Lucy Lane, the younger sister of Lois, got remarried. And Jimmy can't deal with this. So Jimmy is not only going to use the miracle machine to try to summon an army of alternate superpowered Jimmy Olsens to fight Lex Luthor, but he's also going to try to summon more Lucy Lanes too. So Jimmy's got his hands on this giant key from the Silver Age that used to belong to an old supervillain named the Key. And this particular gadget can literally open any lock. So Jimmy uses it to bypass the miracle machine's password protection. And then Jimmy uses the miracle machine, but things go wrong. For a being to correctly use the miracle machine, they need what Brainiac 5 refers to as clarity of thought. And like we said, Jimmy Olsen is upset, right? And he's not known for his focus. So instead of summoning an army of Jimmy Olsens from other dimensions and other timelines, it's more like he is turning himself into every Jimmy at once. So he starts sprouting extra arms, extra heads, extra everything. And he's part elastic, and he's part turtle, and he's part werewolf, you name it. And as Jimmy is slowly morphing into infinite probabilities, he's gaining mass. Soon the entire Earth K dimension will be engulfed by Olsen matter, like a twisted cross between John Carpenter's The Thing and The Blob. And while Jimmy got the worst of it because he was at ground zero, basically, everyone else still remembers multiple ways that the world has gone. In other words, every character here remembers every version of their various continuities all at once. So Batman remembers dying in the 70s, like the Batman of Earth 2 did. But then he also remembers being the Frank Miller version of Bruce Wayne in the 1980s, as well as a Bruce who used Lazarus pits to stay young, and a Bruce who was bitten by Dracula, etc. Everyone is in that same boat now, remembering everything that ever was or could have been. For the moment, it's almost maddening. And it's even worse for Lex Luthor because he's put his mind into the body of Rex Luthor. So the timelines where Lex did not do that start to encroach on the current reality. As such, the body of Rex Luthor is sort of flickering in and out of existence, threatening to kill Lex once and for all. Pressed for time and without much on hand to utilize, Superman is forced to use his super speed to grab one of those Kryptonian crystals, the ones that Jor-El used on himself so that Superman could ask Jor-El questions. And the living mind of Jor-El is then able to have a two-way conversation. Superman uses the crystal, and Lex Luthor's battle suit still has the personality transfer gadget that was used earlier. So the mind and soul of the original Lex Luthor are placed inside of that Kryptonian crystal. Batman's Batarang is still stuck on the hypercube, too. And the waves of altered reality are still washing over everyone. So the mind of Lex is saved in the nick of time as mere seconds later, his physical form ceases to exist. Which brings us to the epilogue. Power Girl and Superman Red enter the Phantom Zone. Power Girl remembers when she and Zoltar had to navigate the Phantom Zone in the 1980s. And Superman Red recently acquired copies of the Infinity Gems, which he uses to fix what's wrong with Jimmy. The crystal that houses the mind of Lex Luthor is placed in a harmless hologram projector so Lex can see and talk, but now he can't physically touch anything in the physical world, let alone pick up a tool that he could use to somehow build a new doomsday device or something. Lex tells Superman he will find a way out of this, and when he does, he'll destroy Superman. Superman smiles and is patient and says Lex is just mad because Superman saved his life again. And of course, Lex doesn't stay a hologram forever, but that's a story for another day. We enjoyed this one. We hope you did too. If so, and you'd like to support our channel, we would love it if you chose to smash that like button. Check to see if you're still subscribed because YouTube loves to unsubscribe you and not tell you. And last but not least, leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.